The ocean is calm, the horizon a silver blade dividing sky and sea. But in this alternate history, the calm is nothing but a mask for something unimaginable. Two giants of steel, machines so vast that they bend the very definition of warship, move inexorably toward each other. The Montana, pride of American engineering, built in secret to outmatch every battleship before her. And the H-44, a monster on paper made real, the fever dream of Germany's naval architects, laid down in steel despite the ruin of war. In our reality, neither ship ever sailed. But here, in this imagined clash, they do more than sail. They fight. The trigger is subtle. In this timeline, Germany is not strangled so quickly by blockade and bombing. Its industry, shielded by earlier victories, pushes forward the impossible. The H-44 emerges from the shipyards, a vessel nearly twice the size of Yamato, bristling with 8 20-inch guns, armor thicker than anything afloat, and engines built to drag its mountain of steel across the Atlantic. Across the ocean, the United States sees the reports, reads the intelligence, and responds in kind. Montana, larger than the Iowas, more heavily armed, more heavily armored, is completed not as a paper project but as reality. She is America's answer to a nightmare. Now the stage is set. The year is 1946. The world is exhausted by war, yet war refuses to die. Germany, bruised but unbroken, still clings to its Atlantic ambitions. America, emboldened and industrially limitless, sends its latest battleship to confront the beast. The two ships, symbols of ideology as much as steel, close the gap between them in the mid-Atlantic. Imagine the scene. Crewmen standing tense on Montana's deck, eyes scanning the horizon for the enemy they had only heard whispers about. Below them, engines churn, propellers biting into the deep, driving the 70,000-ton Leviathan forward. In the gunnery control rooms, men adjust radar dials, their screens glowing green in the dim light. They know their advantage lies not only in guns but in information, in the ability to strike first and strike true. On the other side, the H-44 cuts through the sea like a floating fortress, nearly 140,000 tons of steel, dwarfing every ship that ever dared the waves. Her guns tower like cathedrals, barrels so massive that even the men who load them feel like insects at their base. The crew is nervous but proud. They sail aboard the greatest ship ever built, a symbol of German will and engineering genius. To them, this is not just another battle, it is destiny. The first contact comes not with a flash of light, but with a whisper. A radar blip on Montana's scopes, faint but unmistakable. The word ripples through the ship like a spark on dry tinder. Contact. The captain steps into the combat information center, calm but electric, his voice steady as he orders the ship to battle stations. Sirens wail, men rush to their stations, hatches clang shut. The air is thick with the knowledge that what lies ahead has never been tested in history. Hours pass, the distance shrinking. The sea grows restless, as if it senses the violence to come. Then, at 30 miles, Montana's radar fixes the H-44 with precision. Orders flow, calculations race across tables, and the great American guns elevate, their barrels aligning with invisible coordinates. The men in the plotting rooms know what this means. For the first time in history, one super battleship will fire upon another. The thunder comes like a world ending. Montana's first salvo erupts, 6 great flashes tearing open the horizon. The sound rolls across the ocean like a storm breaking, the shells climbing high into the sky before descending on their unseen target. The crew holds its breath, waiting for the telltale columns of water, or the fire of a hit. On H-44, the lookouts scream. Columns of water rise around the German giant, taller than houses, crashing back into the sea with the force of waterfalls. The crew knows now. The Americans have found them, and the range is closing. The order is given, and for the first time the 20-inch guns speak. The recoil shudders through the steel, vibrations humming in the bones of every man aboard. Each shell, heavier than a car, arcs toward Montana like the fist of a god. The Atlantic is now alive with fire and thunder. Water plumes rise like ghosts, flames flash across gray skies, and steel titans trade blows in a duel no human imagination had ever truly prepared for. Montana maneuvers, zigzagging, using her speed to complicate the German aim. H-44 lumbers forward, slower, heavier, but relentless, her armor shrugging off near misses that would have torn lesser ships in half. Inside Montana's plotting rooms, the men sweat over their instruments, calling out corrections, adjusting elevation and bearing. They know they cannot let the German close the distance. At long range, radar gives them an edge. At short range, the sheer weight of H-44's guns could spell doom. On H-44, the atmosphere is different. The gunners work with precision, but their tools are older, their reliance on optics greater. They curse the smoke and spray, the interference of weather, the evasive maneuvers of their quarry. Yet when their guns roar again, Even Montana's crew cannot help but flinch, knowing that a single hit could rip through decks and bulkheads, killing hundreds in a breath. Two philosophies of war clash in this moment. America's faith in technology, coordination, and speed against Germany's faith in brute force, mass, and invulnerability. The duel is not just steel on steel, it is a battle of ideas, and only one can prove itself on the ocean's endless stage. And then, it happens. A hit. One of Montana's shells slams into H-44's forward superstructure, shattering steel, sending shards and fire across her deck. Smoke rises, alarms wail, men scramble to contain the damage. The German giant has bled, but she is not broken. Her reply comes swift and merciless, another salvo tearing the sky. One of the shells crashes near Montana's bow. The blast shudders through the hull, flooding compartments, knocking men from their feet. Water pours in. Damage control teams rush forward, fighting to seal hatches and pump the sea back where it belongs. The American ship staggers, but keeps moving, her engines roaring in defiance. The giants are locked now, neither yielding, neither retreating. The Atlantic itself becomes a battlefield, every wave reflecting fire and fury. And in this clash, the future of naval warfare, the very meaning of the battleship, hangs in the balance. The ocean trembles under their fury. Shell after shell crosses the sky in glowing arcs, vanishing into walls of spray. Montana, sleek and modern, leans into her turns using speed as a shield. H-44, immense and relentless, drives forward, her crew bracing against the shock of her own firepower. The duel is no longer theoretical, it is brutal, exhausting, and real. Inside Montana's armored plotting room, the men work like surgeons under pressure. Voices crackle through headsets, corrections called, calculations shouted over the rumble of engines and the thunder above. The ship's radar feeds them lifelines of data, invisible threads connecting their guns to the distant target. They know every adjustment could mean the difference between missing wide or landing a decisive blow. Above them, Montana's guns roar again. The concussion rattles bulkheads, dust falls from the ceiling, ears ring even through protective gear. The shells rise into the gray Atlantic sky, their paths invisible to human eyes but certain on the glowing screens. Seconds stretch into eternities as they descend, then impact. One shell buries itself into H-44's armored belt. The explosion sends steel plates buckling and men sprawling. But the German Leviathan holds. Her armor, thicker than anything afloat, drinks in the punishment and spits smoke but no surrender. On the German ship, the atmosphere is a mix of pride and dread. The damage is severe but not mortal. Teams swarm the wounded compartments, hoses and extinguishers fighting flames while pumps strain to keep seawater at bay. The gunners above continue their deadly rhythm, loading shells heavier than trucks into chambers hot with the reek of burnt powder. Their commander bellows through the din, his voice raw, "Keep firing." And they do. Another broadside erupts. 8 monstrous shells tear the sky, each capable of ripping a city block apart if it found land. They descend toward Montana, the American crew watching the horizon vanish behind towering plumes of spray. One shell finds its mark. Montana shudders as armor plates peel back near her stern. A fuel line ruptures, fire licking upward. Damage control rushes in, their faces blackened, eyes red from smoke. The ship bleeds, but she does not stop. Both crews are pushed to their limits. They fight not only the enemy, but the sea itself. The rolling Atlantic swells, the rain beginning to lash down, the wind that whips voices away. Men grip steel rails until their knuckles whiten, praying silently or cursing aloud as the duel grinds on. Strategically, both captains face the same dilemma. How long can their ship endure? The Montana's commander knows he must keep distance, use his speed and radar before H-44's sheer brute strength overwhelms him. The German admiral knows he must close in, bring those colossal guns into a range where even Montana's advanced technology cannot save her. It is a chess match played at 30 knots, each move costing lives in steel. Then comes the moment of near disaster. H-44 lands a shell dead center on Montana's forward turret. The impact is cataclysmic, the turret's armor torn, the chamber filled with fire and smoke. Men inside are incinerated before they can scream. The turret is crippled, its guns silenced, and for a moment the crew believes the ship is doomed. But Montana refuses to yield. Her remaining turrets answer back, thunder rolling across the ocean, fire leaping from the barrels with renewed defiance. On H-44, the effect is immediate. One of Montana's shells slams into her deck, detonating near an ammunition hoist. Flames shoot skyward, and only the frantic efforts of desperate sailors prevent the fire from reaching the magazine. Had it done so, the German Titan might have ended then and there, consumed by her own fury. Instead, she limps onward, scarred but alive, her guns still roaring. The battle has become something more than material. It is spiritual. Every man aboard both ships feels it. This is not just about survival or victory. This is about proving whose vision of war, whose idea of power, will dominate the oceans. For the Americans, It is about technology, precision, and discipline. For the Germans, it is about raw strength, willpower, and the refusal to bend. Hours slip into a blur of smoke and thunder. The sea between them churns into a cauldron, scarred by shell splashes, oil slicks, and wreckage. Yet neither ship has struck the killing blow. Both remain afloat, both continue to fight, though each is bleeding from wounds that would have sunk lesser vessels long ago. Finally, as night begins to fall, the weather turns against them. Heavy rain lashes down, waves rise higher, and visibility collapses. Montana's captain senses opportunity. Radar can cut through the storm while H-44's optical fire control falters. He orders the ship into the storm's teeth, using nature itself as his ally. The American Leviathan disappears into the gray, her silhouette swallowed by wind and water. On H-44's bridge, frustration mounts. The enemy has vanished, yet the radar warnings still come. Invisible eyes are upon them, watching, tracking. The German crew tightens their grips on controls, waiting for the next strike, knowing they are blind in the storm. And then, it comes. Montana reappears, not in sight, but in sound. Her guns thunder from the dark, shells screaming through wind and rain. Columns of water erupt around H-44, closer now, more precise. One shell strikes her aft, tearing apart her rudder housing. The great German ship lurches, her ability to maneuver crippled. Alarms shriek, men scramble, the sea itself seeming to conspire against them. H-44 still floats, still fires, but the balance has shifted. For Montana, this is the moment to press her advantage. Yet every man aboard knows the risk. A single lucky hit from those colossal 20-inch guns could still end them. The duel has reached its most dangerous stage, the razor's edge where victory and annihilation are separated by a breath. The storm deepens, swallowing sky and sea into one seething mass of gray. Lightning forks above, thunder rolls beneath, but still the two Leviathans fight on. Montana, guided by radar, stalks her prey with hunter's patience. H-44, half blind in the tempest, thrashes forward like a wounded beast, her guns still roaring into the night. The ocean itself has become their arena, a theater of fury where even nature seems intent on testing the limits of man's creations. Inside Montana, the crew works with grim efficiency. Damage control parties race through smoke-choked corridors, sealing compartments, pumping water, dragging wounded comrades to safety. The ship bears wounds, her bow torn, one turret silenced. Fires smoldering in her stern, but she lives, and more importantly, she can still fight. In the plotting rooms, the men cling to their instruments as the ship bucks and heaves, their eyes never leaving the glowing radar screens. Every blip is a heartbeat, every echo a sign that the German Titan still lumbers forward. On H-44, conditions are even worse. Water floods through shattered bulkheads, fires rage unchecked in corners of the ship too dangerous to reach. The rudder damage leaves her slow to answer the helm, each turn delayed and labored. Yet her crew refuses to yield. They fight the flames with buckets when hoses fail. They drag shells to the magazines with their bare hands when machinery falters. Above, the gunners continue their desperate work, trusting in brute force and instinct where instruments falter. The German commander stands tall on his bridge, rain lashing his face, his voice hoarse from shouting orders. He knows the odds are turning against them, but pride demands defiance. The duel grows closer. Montana presses the advantage, edging nearer through the storm, firing salvo after salvo into the murk. The great American guns speak with measured fury, their thunder timed to the rhythm of the radar's heartbeat. Each impact creeps closer, and then another strike. A shell punches deep into H-44's forward deck, tearing open a hangar and igniting stored fuel. The explosion blossoms like a second sun, fire leaping into the night, illuminating the rain like sparks on black glass. For a moment, H-44 staggers. Her forward guns fall silent, smoke pouring from the wound. But then, impossibly, her aft turrets respond. 6 colossal shells erupt into the storm, their roar shaking the heavens. Montana braces. Water plumes rise all around, one shell smashing into her deck near the stern. The blast tears open plating, shatters anti-aircraft mounts, and sends men tumbling into the sea. The American ship groans, steel shrieking under the stress, but she holds. Now both ships are bleeding, both crippled yet unwilling to fall. It is as if the sea itself resists the idea of one Titan dying without dragging the other down as well. The duel has become an echo of the philosophies they represent. For America, the belief that technology and coordination can overcome brute power. For Germany, the faith that sheer mass and defiance can withstand even the most modern adversary. But war is not decided by ideals alone. It is decided by steel, by fire, by luck, and Montana's luck strikes again. Another radar-guided salvo tears through the storm, and this time, one shell plunges deep into H-44's engineering spaces. The explosion is catastrophic. Boilers rupture, turbines scream, compartments flood with scalding steam. Dozens die in an instant, and the ship's speed falters, dropping as if the ocean itself clutched her hull. The German crew refuses to abandon their fight. Men stagger through smoke-filled passages, some blinded, some burned, but still hauling hoses, still passing shells. The aft turrets continue to fire, each shot shaking what remains of their colossus. Yet the storm and the damage conspire against them. Their accuracy dwindles, while Montana's grows sharper, more precise. Inside Montana, the crew senses the shift. Voices crackle through headsets with renewed energy. The captain orders the ship to press forward, to keep striking while the advantage is theirs. The men obey with grim determination, knowing that every salvo brings them closer to either triumph or destruction. And then comes the moment the crew has prayed for. A hit, not just damaging, but decisive. One of Montana's shells pierces H-44's armored deck and plunges into a forward magazine. For a heartbeat, there is silence, a frozen second where time itself seems to hold its breath. Then, the explosion. It begins as a blinding flash, a thunderclap that dwarfs even the storm. The forward half of H-44 erupts, steel plates thrown skyward, turrets hurled from their mounts, fire racing through the ship's veins. The night becomes day, the rain lit by the inferno. Men are thrown from decks, the sea itself boiling around the wreckage. The German Titan, pride of impossible ambition, is mortally wounded. Yet even in her death, H-44 refuses to surrender quietly. Her aft guns fire one last time, a final roar of defiance into the storm. Shells splash wide, but the symbolism is undeniable. She dies as she lived, unyielding, immense, terrifying. Slowly, the colossal ship lists, flames devouring her, the ocean rushing in to claim what no enemy ever could. Within minutes, the stern rises, the bow plunges, and the greatest warship ever built slides beneath the waves. Montana's crew watches in stunned silence. They had faced a nightmare-given form, and they had survived. But their victory tastes of ash. Hundreds of their own comrades lie dead or wounded, their ship scarred, her forward turret silent, her stern battered. They know they were inches from destruction themselves. The storm begins to break as the sea swallows H-44 whole. The fire fades, leaving only oil slicks and debris bobbing on restless waves. Montana steams forward slowly, her engines groaning, her crew exhausted. The duel is over, but the questions it leaves behind are only beginning. For what purpose was such destruction unleashed? What did it prove, beyond the endurance of men and the fragility of steel? And what would the world have looked like had these giants truly been unleashed in war, not just in this imagined storm? Dawn breaks over the Atlantic, pale and uncertain. The storm has passed, but the sea is scarred. Oil slicks stretch across the surface, carrying twisted fragments of steel, lifeboats splintered, and the bodies of men who only hours before had stood aboard the greatest warship ever imagined. The H-44 is gone, her vast bulk resting on the ocean floor, her final roar still echoing in the minds of those who survived. Montana drifts through the wreckage like a ghost. Her hull bears the wounds of the duel, plating peeled back, compartments flooded, smoke still rising from scorched decks. The silence aboard is heavy. Men move slowly now, their adrenaline spent, their faces hollow. They have won, yet they know victory came at a cost too high to celebrate. The captain stands on the bridge, his gaze fixed on the horizon. He had stared into the abyss of naval warfare and returned alive, but what he has seen will never leave him. For he knows this was more than a battle of ships. It was a battle of philosophies, of visions of war pushed to their absolute extremes. The H-44 had embodied the German pursuit of invulnerability, a belief that sheer size and power could overcome all. Yet even the mightiest armor could not protect her forever. Montana had embodied the American pursuit of balance and technology, radar-guided fire, coordination, and speed. And yet she too had come within a heartbeat of annihilation. Both ships had proved one thing beyond doubt, that in the age of air power, submarines, and long-range missiles, battleships were not gods. They were giants with feet of clay. The survivors of H-44's crew, plucked from the sea by Montana's battered sailors, stare across the decks at their former enemies. There is no hatred now, only exhaustion, only the shared bond of men who have glimpsed the end. They murmur in their native tongues, whispering about comrades lost, about the inferno that claimed their ship, about the madness of pitting steel mountains against each other in a world already crumbling under the weight of war. As Montana turns slowly toward home, her crew reflects on what they have endured. They wonder what history will make of this battle, if history will ever record it at all. Would it be called victory, or would it be remembered as folly? The ultimate expression of mankind's obsession with building ever larger, ever deadlier machines, only to watch them sink beneath indifferent waves. The ocean offers no answer. It simply rolls on, indifferent, eternal. But the lesson remains, etched into the minds of every man aboard. Size is not invincibility. Technology is not certainty. Even the greatest creations of human ambition are fragile before the chaos of war. And so, in this imagined history, the clash of H-44 and Montana is not just the duel of ultimate battleships. It is the swan song of an era, the last thunderous roar before the age of carriers, submarines, and missiles swept the seas clean of such titans. A reminder that even giants can bleed, and that no empire, no machine, no dream of steel can stand forever against time. The Montana limps westward, her silhouette broken but unbowed, leaving behind a graveyard marked only by oil and silence. Beneath the waves, the H-44 rests in darkness, her story untold in our reality. But in this alternate history, she fought, she defied, and she died as the last of her kind. And perhaps that is why this story resonates, not for who won or who lost, but for what it says about us, about ambition, about pride, about the limits of human power when it collides with the vast, merciless sea. Because in the end, battleships are not just machines, they are mirrors, reflecting the hopes and fears of the nations that build them and the men who sail them into fire. So as the waves close over H-44's resting place and Montana fades into the gray horizon, one question lingers like smoke on the wind. Was it worth it? If you've journeyed with us through this clash of ultimate battleships, stay with us for the next voyage into history's hidden paths and unrealized possibilities. There are always more stories beneath the waves waiting to be told.